The neon lights of Stellar Nexus, the galaxy's most notorious interspecies cantina, cast an ethereal glow across the diverse crowd of patrons. Located on the neutral trading station of Kepler Prime, it served as a melting pot where beings from across the known systems came to drink, deal, and occasionally start diplomatic incidents. James Chen adjusted his collar nervously as he navigated between tables, carrying a tray of bioluminescent cocktails that shifted colors with each step. 6 months into his job as the only human waiter in the establishment, he'd grown accustomed to the stares, whispers, and occasional crude comments about his species. Humans were still relatively new to the galactic community, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 50 years ago. At table 7 sat Lisa Velthari, a Zephyrian noble whose azure skin seemed to shimmer under the bar's lighting. Her species was known throughout the galaxy for their incredible psychic abilities and their equally incredible capacity for Andromedan whiskey. Tonight, she was testing the limits of both. Another round. Liza slurred in heavily accented galactic standard, her forearms gesturing wildly as she regaled her companions with tales of her family's mining empire. The crystalline horns protruding from her forehead pulsed with a soft blue light, a telltale sign of intoxication in her species. James approached cautiously. Zephyrians were notoriously unpredictable when drunk, and their psychic abilities could make them dangerous. "Ma'am, perhaps you'd like to try our sobering elixir? It's quite popular with human," Liza interrupted, her large violet eyes focusing on him with predatory interest. "You're that fragile little species, aren't you? The ones who die if you look at them wrong." Her companions, a Korthak trader and 2 Selenian diplomats, chuckled nervously. The entire cantina seemed to quiet down, sensing potential entertainment or disaster. "We're more resilient than most give us credit for," James replied diplomatically, setting down fresh drinks. "Now if there's nothing else." "Resilient?" Liza laughed, the sound like tinkling crystal. "Your species hasn't even colonized your own solar system properly. You live on one little mud ball and think you're ready for the stars." She stood unsteadily, towering over James by nearly 2 feet. "I bet underneath that uniform, you're just as soft and weak as every other human." Before James could react, Liza's upper right arm shot out with surprising speed. Her clawed fingers caught the fabric of his work shirt and tore it clean down the front, exposing his chest and abdomen to the entire cantina. The crowd fell silent. Liza's psychic-enhanced vision took in every detail of what lay beneath the torn fabric. Her eyes widened, the blue glow of her horns flickering as shock sobered her instantly. James's torso was a roadmap of scars. A thick, ropey scar ran from his left shoulder to his right hip, clearly from some kind of energy weapon. Multiple circular marks dotted his chest and arms, burns from plasma fire. His left side showed the telltale starburst pattern of a fragmentation, grenade explosion, while his right shoulder bore the distinctive parallel lines of Korthak claw marks. But it wasn't just the scars that made Liza's breath catch. It was the muscle definition underneath them, not the bulky mass of a warrior species like the Korthak, but the lean, functional strength of someone who had survived through skill and determination rather than natural advantages. "By the 7 moons," whispered the Korthak trader, recognizing his own species marks. "Those are battle scars." James calmly gathered the torn fabric of his shirt, attempting to cover himself. "If you'll excuse me, I need to get a replacement uniform." "Wait!" Liza called out, her voice no longer slurred. The psychic abilities that had been dampened by alcohol were now firing on all cylinders, and she was reading the emotional resonance around those scars. Pain, determination, sacrifice, and something else, a protective instinct so strong it made her stumble backward. "The siege of Proxima Colony," she whispered, the pieces falling into place. "You were there." James paused, his jaw tightening almost imperceptibly. Around the cantina, the mood shifted as patrons began to understand what they were witnessing. "The news reports," continued one of the Selenian diplomats, her feathered crest rising in recognition, "when the Void Hunters attacked the human colony. The defense force was outnumbered 50 to 1. Everyone said it was hopeless, that humans would flee like every other species had done when facing the Hunters. But they didn't. the Korthak trader added, his respect evident. They stayed, fought with primitive weapons against energy cannons, lost 60% of their forces but saved every civilian. Liza's psychic senses were picking up more now. Phantom pain from injuries that had nearly killed him, the weight of decisions that had saved lives, the exhaustion of carrying wounded comrades to safety while his own blood painted the ground beneath him. "You were the medic," she breathed, the alcohol-fueled arrogance completely gone from her voice. The reports mentioned a human medic who refused evacuation, who stayed behind to treat the wounded even after the medical station was destroyed. James's silence was confirmation enough. "Your people," Liza continued, her voice growing stronger as understanding dawned. "They don't retreat. They don't surrender. They stand and fight not because they're the strongest or the fastest, but because they choose to. Because someone has to." The cantina remained dead quiet, every patron now looking at the human waiter with new eyes. The species they had dismissed as soft and weak had produced soldiers who would die before abandoning their posts, who would face impossible odds not from arrogance or bloodlust, but from an unshakable sense of duty. Liza began, then stopped. In her culture, public apologies were signs of weakness, but the psychic echoes of sacrifice and heroism radiating from this unassuming human made her usual pride seem petty and small. She removed her expensive outer robe, a garment worth more than most beings made in a year, and offered it to James. "Please. I was wrong. About humans, about you." James looked at the offered robe, then at Liza's face. Her violet eyes held no trace of mockery now, only something that might have been awe. "Keep it," he said simply. "But thank you for the gesture." As he walked toward the staff quarters to change, conversations began to resume throughout the cantina. But they were different now. The dismissive comments about human frailty were replaced by respectful murmurs. The Korthak trader was explaining to his tablemates about human military tactics during the Void Hunter War. The Selenian diplomats were discussing trade agreements with human territories. Liza sat down heavily, her three companions looking at her with curiosity. "What just happened?" one asked. Liza stared at the doorway where James had disappeared, her psychic senses still processing the emotional weight of what she had witnessed. "I think," she said slowly, "I just learned why the Galactic Council fast-tracked humanity's membership application." She picked up her drink with a shaking hand, the Andromedan whiskey suddenly tasting bitter. "They're not the strongest species in the galaxy. They're not the smartest or the fastest or the most advanced." She paused, meeting each of her companions' eyes in turn. "But they might just be the bravest." Outside, through the cantina's viewport, the stars wheeled in their eternal dance, and somewhere among them, human colonies stood ready to face whatever darkness the universe might bring, not because they were fearless, but because fear had never stopped them from doing what was right. And in a small cantina on Kepler Prime, the galaxy's perception of humanity had just shifted forever.